I am so excited to be here with Jen Lehner and meet again. Well, now it's virtually over the internet. I'm in Switzerland, she's in the US, but we met at Social Media Marketing World and talked about Front Row. So thank you for coming on the show, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me, Sigrun. I'm thrilled to be here.
So I came into the room a bit early. I was like one of the first 10 people coming into a room where you were like a host for the whole track for the whole day at Social Media Marketing World. I don't even remember the talk. I just remember that we met there. And since then, we've been trying to set up this podcast interview. But as I came in, I'm like, well, I'm aiming for the front row, because I want to see and hear clearly, and I want to connect with speakers. And you were like, of course you sit in the front row.
So, I loved it so much. Yeah.
And you quickly talked to me. We did a quick Facebook Live before the speaker came on stage. And honestly, I've really forgotten who was speaking. But you actually have a business called Front Row, a podcast called Front Row. I'm super curious how that name, why you choose that name and what it means to you.
Okay. So it's my favorite thing to talk about because it is more than just the name of my business. It's really my philosophy in life. And I was talking to my college girlfriends the other day about this. And one of them said, it really is more than a marketing, like a cute marketing title. She goes, because you always were in the front row in college. Like that's where I met these girls, was like in the front row. And the idea is just that life is too short to take a back seat in life or in business. And just like you said, when you are in the front, you literally, like, not being like metaphorical or anything. It's just like you literally hear it better. You see it better. The person in front sees you and hears you better. And it's just sort of saying, it's a way of saying like, I'm all in, I can't jump out the back door. I'm all in. And guess what else? There's other bonuses. Like I found when I go to a conference, if I'm sitting on the front row, almost every single time, the person to the right of me and the person to the left of me has that front row mindset. Like they're go-getters. They're all in. They're ready to like squeeze all the juice out of the lemon, So that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but it's so true. Like I always try to sit in the front row, and it's interesting whether it's a concert or someone getting married in a church. I'm always surprised that the front row is empty. So I can come last minute and there's a seat available in the front row because people somehow don't want to be seen, or they don't want to be too pushy and whatever. And I'm like, well, I'll take that seat. Thank you very much.
And it's also non-committal. If you're sitting in the back row, you're as non-committal as you can get. You're basically saying like, I want to be near the door so I can make an exit if I need to make a quick exit. And there are times for that, right? Like, but most of the time it's the front row is the place to be. And you're right. People, I think, are afraid to be seen up there, but I'm not.
No. And I'm not too. So that's great. And that's how we connected. And that's why we ended up here to talk about Front Row. But this spills over into other areas in your life and business. I couldn't help but noticing that on your podcast, you have interviewed some great people like Gary Vaynerchuk and Seth Godin. And I was like, wow, how does he get these amazing guests? And you said, well, that's the front row mindset. But can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So, okay. So back to the front row mindset, like another thing I just thought of is, and this will tie into the podcast thing, is like, if I'm going to park, okay, I'm going to park my car. I go right to the front best parking space and I get the space. And that is because the mentality of people is like, they pull in, they go to the third row because they know they'll get a spot there because they don't want to go to the front row and then have to circle around the parking lot. I just go right to the front row. I'm like, why not me? There's going to be a spot. There's almost always a spot, even at Christmas time, whatever, I can find a spot. So with the podcast, it's sort of the same thing. So it started with Gary Vaynerchuk had an episode, and he was actually on James Altucher's podcast. And they started talking, and out of the blue, Gary V said, you know what? I'm going to shift gears. If somebody creates a podcast right now and they post 2 episodes and then they tweet hashtag Gary and James, I started, I'll come on your podcast. And he said for 5 minutes is what he said. I was a Sunday and I was like, damn it. Like I knew I was going to have to do this. It was like a compulsion. Like I was with my dog. I was like, ugh. So I turned around, I went home. I had no podcast. I knew that year I was going to start a podcast, no podcast. I walked in, I said to my husband, honey, you're in charge of the kids. I got to go do a podcast. He knew better than to ask. He's like, whatever. I go and I created a podcast that day, uploaded 2 episodes, but then the hard part was getting him. And James had said on that show, James Altucher said, oh yeah, me too. I'll be on your show too, is what they said. So I tweeted like crazy with the hashtag, but I really, really worked hard and I got James first. And once I got James on the show, he came sooner. Once I did a show with him, a full hour, I tweeted, I tweeted the clip from the original episode. I cut it out where Gary V said he would do this, right? His promise. I captured it and then I tweeted it again. This time it said, James kept his word. No, it's your turn, right? And then immediately I heard from his assistant and we scheduled it and he stayed for an hour and then he even put our show on his show. So I got to be on the Gary V show as well. So it was like a super win. And then once you land a couple of big fish, it makes it much easier to then get some bigger names. But Seth came on for a different reason. He came on because he, I emailed him. It's like, why not me? Why not me? I don't, and what are they going to do? They're going to say no. And then I'll try again. And I had actually emailed Seth over the years several times. And guess what? He replies to his email. Probably will hate me for announcing this on your podcast, but he does reply to his emails. And so he had told me no many times. No, sorry. Thank you. No. But this time I just decided to say, hey, did you know that Entrepreneur Magazine, is threatening to sue me for using the word entrepreneur in the name of my podcast? And I said, did you know the word entrepreneur is trademarked? And then he got fired up about that. He was mad about that. He replied, he came on my podcast. Then he wrote an article about it. It was just amazing. But that's the front row attitude in that you just gotta, life is short. Who's going to do that for me? Who's going to reach out to Seth Godin for me and get him on my podcast and he's going to write an article? Nope, nobody. And what do I have to lose? Maybe they think I'm a pest. So what?
I love it. I absolutely love it. And it resonates so much with me to just go for it. And yes, they promised. So you were going to hold them up to their promise. And yeah, getting Seth's attention with something that he's madly passionate about, don't go after the small business owners. We're going to protect them. Yeah, absolutely love it. So Jen, we could probably do a whole episode just on those topics, but actually we do have another topic to go to. Before we go to the main topic, how did you end up doing what you do today? Was there a straight path to this place, or what path did you take?
It was just, I think I just sort of stumbled my way into it. It's not terribly electrifying. It was, I did do do you know what a cash mob is?
No.
Or do you know what a flash mob is?
Yes.
Okay. So a cash mob is a take on a flash mob. So for your audience, for your listeners, a flash mob is when a bunch of people show up. Behind the scenes, they've organized a dance or something, and they show up in a public place and they do this very orchestrated, choreographed dance routine. A cash mob is when, same thing, it's orchestrated behind the scenes and a bunch of people will show up at a local business and flood them with cash, buy things like a hardware store or a bakery or whatever. So I came up with a name, Flash Cashers, because there was this little pie shop in my town with no customers. It was a brand new pie shop. It was so cute. And it was in the shower. And I was like thinking about the pie shop. And I'm like, nobody's ever at the pie shop. Oh, there's no parking. I should go into the pie shop, but I probably won't. Wait, I live 2 blocks away. If I don't go in the pie shop, nobody's going to go into the pie shop. And then I just started you know how you do in the shower. And I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll do a flash mob. So I used the power of, at that time, I wasn't an official marketer, but I knew how to do like send out constant contact. I knew how to do some Facebook basic stuff, and I knew how to tweet and stuff. So, long story short, we tweeted, we did some stuff, and they had lines around the door for 3 hours. So I ended up trademarking that. It's called Flash Cashers. And we did it it was nonprofit, and did it for local businesses where people would vote on the business, and we would show up and surprise. And we had some other things built into that. So it was sort of, there was a format to it, but it was really great. And what I learned inside those businesses were these local businesses they weren't doing really any marketing. And there was so much potential. So I found a local business, and I said, hey, I have a proposition for you. She had no website. She had nothing, but she was an awesome store. I said, let me do everything for you, and you don't have to pay me. But what I want you to do is give me free reign and to let me do what I want. And then if you like it, you recommend me to your business friends. And she's like, sure. I did. She loved it. And that's the end. Like, once you make money for people, you don't ever, especially if you're a freelancer or a consultant, then your dance card fills up very quickly. So I was really booked with local consulting jobs. And that's really what ended up happening, is that I realized I didn't know everything, but I knew enough to help local businesses. And then I learned more, and then I learned more. And then I realized, oh my God, I hate having all these customers. And so that's when I shifted to the online business model of creating courses and, and membership site and so forth. And that's really when the game changed for me. But that's a long answer of how I stumbled into this.
But I loved how basically you wanting to help a local business owner led to all of this, which is a beautiful story.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So now your business has still transformed from being like marketing into actually helping business owner get help with her business, because you see them not getting stuff done because they cannot do it all on their own. And you started helping people, finding a virtual assistant, but not just in the US, but actually in the Philippines. So how did that happen? Does that because you were helping them with marketing and they weren't then be able to continue doing themselves?
Well, I had done like a little free program like 4 years ago, when I had my own epiphany of like, wow, like, this is just not, at some point, no matter how well you're doing, you hit a ceiling. You could be crushing it, but at some point you were going to get to a point where you're like, I just can't fulfill my potential because there's only one of me. So fortunately I found this out early, and I hired my own virtual assistant, and it changed everything. And this person was in the Philippines. So I created a little freebie course, and I got a lot of great feedback from that. And then over the years, I keep hearing the same thing. And either people just can't get liftoff because we have a great idea for starting a business. We're really good at something. And whatever that thing is, we go out and hang a shingle, and we're like, we're going to go do that thing. And then we get into the business and we're like, oh God, I have to do so much more than just that thing. I have to do marketing. I have to do admin. I have to do taxes. I have to do, all those have to do's that you have to do in your business that really have nothing to do with that thing you started your business for. And that's soul crushing for a lot of entrepreneurs. It really is, because, you're just in this trap. Like, you know what needs to be done. It's just like, well, I don't have time to learn Facebook ads and, do these joint venture opportunities and write the book and whatever. So I kept running into this, and I thought, it's sort of like the nose that was on the nose on the tip of my, whatever the phrase is. It's like right in front of me. It was like, why didn't I offer this sooner? Because I have a system, and and the reason that it works is because for most solopreneurs, again, with the trap, is that also a lot of solopreneurs understand that they need help. It's just, the problem is that there's a couple of problems. One is, they might be at the point where they're like, well, I feel like I need to reach X amount of dollars before I can justify this. And so, but then you never reach X amount of dollars because you don't have any help, right? And so to hire a virtual assistant at $25 an hour or $50 an hour is just really not something that is going to work for a lot of solopreneurs. So this works because you get to leverage the exchange rate. And, I know a lot of people, not a lot of people, some people bristle at the notion of paying someone $4.50 an hour. And there's a couple things that I say about that. One is, first of all, these are the rates that in my process, the VA is asking for. And again, we're leveraging exchange rate. So what's $4.50 an hour there is not $4.50 an hour here. It goes a lot further. But there's other ways to get to reward and compensate that VA beyond just that hourly rate. So they get to grow with you. And not only that, there's a sense of ownership. And if your VA has a sense of ownership in your business, then you have something so much more than just a contractor, a transactional relationship. You have a person who is deeply invested in your business, who will stay with you for years, not weeks or months. And with the people who have used my system, this is a reality. Like, that's not a pipe dream. That's more often than not. But you do have to do certain things. You can't just go on to Upwork, look for a Filipino VA, and then run with it. You definitely have to vet people along the way.
So there is a system, and you've developed a
Yeah.
system, and I can understand we can not go into the absolute detail of every step of the system, but can you give us a rough outline of what to watch out for when someone says, okay, I'm willing to go for it, Jen, you have convinced me. What do I do next?
Okay. So a couple of things. One is, my system involves, first, when you post your job post, there's also a link to an application in that post, okay, which is a Google form. They fill out the Google form, and there's certain key things that we ask for, right, that are basically going to it's going to automatically eliminate a lot of people based on their answers on this Google form. And Google Forms automatically populate a Google sheet, so like a spreadsheet. Okay, so people are filling out this application, and then that sheet has some automations built in. So once people apply, you can just glance at the sheet. You don't have to read every single application. You can glance and see exactly who passed that part of the application process. Then those people, and so this is all kind of automated. So those people then are going to be given they're going to be sent an email, and in that email, there is going to be a link to an online interview. So again, it's like another form, but it's more like of an interview with more detailed questions. Part of that is we're looking for, well, let me just leave it at that. So they're going to ask more detailed questions. Same thing. Now that goes to a Google form. You could glance at the Google form and you could see very quickly. And in that, and I left out a most important part. In that part, there is a test task. I skipped it. I'm sorry. I really need to look at my flow chart. But in the beginning part, there's a test task, and that test task asks them to. It's very detailed. So it's like you're going to watch this video, and then you're going to create a document based on this video, and then you're going to submit that to us. So then, if they haven't passed the test task, they don't move any further. that test task is basically asking them to create a system. So I don't want to lose anybody here. So I might be shooting myself in the foot by giving too much detail, because I don't want it to sound so complicated, because it's not. It's just that there are a series of steps.
So the first step was anyway the application, which many will not fill out correctly. So you've eliminated a lot of
Right.
people. Those who fill out the application correctly, they get a test task to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then they get the interview. But the test task is, so this is really my favorite part of all of it, is that their test task is they're watching a Loom video of, actually my assistant made the Loom video of her doing how to do a canned response in Gmail. Okay. So she says, this is how you do it. And she says to the applicant that you are going to turn this into a document. The document should look like this. Okay. With screenshots and information, and there should be a checklist. Okay, so there's that. After all that, now you're only going to have like, you're going to have a much smaller amount of people who actually qualify for a Skype interview. So let's say you have 4 people. Now you're going to get on the Skype interview. Now, by this point, they have been so vetted that, and you know that they've got the skills because they have done the assignment perfectly. And all the other questions that were important to you, they've answered correctly. So you get the cream of the crop in the Skype interview. In the Skype interview, if you make the offer, the job offer, it's only for a trial period. So we do a 1-week trial period, and that's all pretty automated as well, because you've got, part of what we do is our CEOs have recorded 5 short videos that the people are going to watch and work off of that for that trial week. So you already have their assignments set up and ready for them. Then, and I like having 2 people, at least 2 or 3 people in a trial week, because then you can, because sometimes no matter how well they interview or whatever else, you just really never know until a person starts working. So they agree to a trial week, you agree to a trial week. And at the end of this trial week, now you are at this point, you can be pretty certain this is the right person for you, because you've gone through all these steps, which really sounded painful, but we have it chunked down into little 5-minute steps, but it's a lot to explain.
So you would say that people will look for this on onlinejobs.ph, or is there any other sites where you suggest that people
That's
will post an ad?
Yeah, that's my favorite site. And when we first piloted this program, I talked to them and I said, I contacted the owner and I said, we're going to have, there's potentially hundreds of people who are going to be going through this program, and they're going to be posting similar type ads. Do you think this is going to be a problem? And he said, I don't, because we get 10,000 posts a day. Which I thought was amazing. I had no idea they were that big, but so I thought, well, let's just give it a shot. And it was absolutely not a problem. But yeah, that's my favorite place. And what I thought was, if that didn't work, then I would go out and find other sites. But it really works. So it works so well for everybody who went through the program that I'm just happy with that site.
Yeah. And you say when people will suggest themselves what they want to get paid, whether it's $3 an hour or $4 or whatever, the suggestion comes from the person in the Philippines themselves. And then you, let's say, agree to that. And then you said there were other ways to incentivize. Can you give some examples?
Oh, sure. So, so usually we start at what I recommend not paying less. You will actually get people who go through the process that will be as little as $2.50, $3 an hour. I do not recommend, even if they ask for that, I do not recommend starting less than $4 an hour. And then soon after that, like 30 days you evaluate them, and then you can start giving small raises. But beyond that, like, and this is also a great way of having them feel ownership in your business, is when you are about to launch a new promotion, figure out a benchmark that is measurable, and let them know, like, okay, if we get 20 people in this new program, you're going to get at 5% of the of the gross from that, or you're going to get $100 bonus, things like that. And then little things like I've got a whole list of ways to send them little happies from within the Philippines. So whether it's flowers or cakes, and there's sort of like an Amazon that is for the Philippines, where you could send things like gifts for their new baby or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's treating the VA as if they were in the office right next to you. And the post that I recommend says as much. It says, I'm looking for someone to grow with my business, to be with me for years and not weeks. And that's my wish for every entrepreneur, because it is, we use the word game changer all the time, but really is a game changer when someone's got your back, when you can just know that someone has got things managed so that you could focus on that thing that you really went into business to do to begin with, and that you can do the things that actually scale your business, like creating the joint venture partnerships, by creating the courses, sharing your brilliance, like that. That's what you showed up to do. And so it's just liberating when you can really feel confident. And the other part is, I think that people feel apprehension about hiring a VA, is that it's like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, because of maybe if there's a type, right? Like, I think there is a type with entrepreneurs, like, we're creative, maybe a little impulsive. I don't know. We're a lot of things, but we're not normal. And the entrepreneur type is pretty good at flying by the seat of our pants. So you can make it work pretty well, but the thought of letting someone else seeing the hot mess that is the back end of your business is a little bit scary, or just thinking like, I don't know what I would give to someone else, but once you start, you won't run out of ideas. I mean, once you start, and once you start creating the systems, and I left out something so important. So that test task was all about making a system, right? As small as it is. I mean, a system is really just a checklist. The guys on the Apollo 13 got back to Earth. I saw it the other day in a museum, and it was like literally because they had typewriters in those days. It was just a typewritten checklist, and it got them safely back to Earth by just following those steps. So a system is really just a checklist. So so the very first tasks that you're going to give to your VA are very similar to that test task that they did. You're going to ask them to your most basic repetitive stuff that you do every day in your business. Okay. And you're going to film yourself. We like to use Loom video. It's my favorite. Do you use Loom?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We love it too.
Couldn't live without it. So we just talk to ourselves all the time, right? Like, so now I'm doing this, and now I'm doing this, and now I'm doing this, and saying why we're doing it. Okay. Now you've got a link, and it's on your Trello board. Then the new VA is going to watch that video. They're going to create the system. Okay. The checklist, maybe a document like they did in the test task with screenshots and explanations with arrows and red circly things and whatever. But now the beauty is a couple of things. Number one, not only do you have this process now documented for any other new hire that you get, but they know how to do it so well because they actually had to create a system. They had to listen to you so well that they had to document this and create a checklist. So we have now in our business over 100 systems, checklists of the routine things that we do in our business, and some things that are, quarterly or whatever. but nothing gets missed now either. It's systematized because people just go through the checklist. So we all know that we didn't miss anything. So that's like one of my favorite parts of the process, because otherwise, even if you have help, if the two of you aren't operating off any kind of systems, it's really just a mess multiplied.
Yeah.
Because you got two people who can't find anything.
Yeah. Or you have two entrepreneurs and they make a bigger mess of it. But
Right.
still hiring someone from the Philippines, there is a certain, maybe I call a stigma around it. Like, why not hire someone locally versus, okay, yes, you could save some money. You can benefit from the exchange rate, as you said. But also there's this thing of like, well, it's somehow different, What do you say to someone that's still having those doubts?
A couple of things. So first of all, and we didn't talk about this, is that I lived in the Philippines for 3 years. I went to university there for a year. And I like the Philippines because I love the Philippines. I love the culture. I love, it's always weird talking about a country in general or a people in general, but you could be pretty accurate if you say like a country values this, a country values that. I mean, they're a very Catholic country, so they're very religious. They observe lots of holidays, so that's a true statement. Tied in with that, they also really value education. And so what you will find is you get applicants who have master's degrees in, I had an applicant the other day who was a pharmacist. So you're getting very highly educated people. So in terms of like different that way, no, well, different, yeah, because I'm getting more highly qualified applicants in that sense than I would here. And English, most people there speak very, very good English. So there's that. But as far as the local versus overseas, I also work with VAs in the United States. I mean, there are some things, for example, copywriting. Like, I'm probably not going to find a copywriter in the Philippines who's going to be able to write the kind of copy that I need. That's just a fact, because we express ourselves differently. English is their second language. So I'm going to find a copywriter here. But for me, that's kind of it. I mean, I'm just a realist. Okay. So like, yeah, I would love to employ, the person down the street who charges $100 an hour for basic admin work or something. That's a bad example, but you know what I mean? That would be nice, but I can't leverage that as the small business that I am. I just can't, that dollars and cents, period. So I don't feel bad about it. If I wasn't paying a fair living wage, or if I was taking advantage, or I thought that this was somehow exploiting people, then that would be one thing. But I do not. So I'm in fact quite just the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we are doing a good thing to be able to employ people from all over the world. We have, we have someone on the team from the Philippines for several months now. I think it's just 3 months, so I'm not going to say yet. But so far, we are very happy. We have not had any doubts about, we want her to stay on forever. We also have someone from India, Canada, US, Italy, Switzerland, Iceland. So I love that people are just from all over the world and are able to work with us as a virtual team.
Yes. Oh, and the other thing I want to say, Sigrun, is that when you're looking for the person, like, it's less important, the way in my system, it's less important that you find someone who is a rock star with ClickFunnels or Kajabi or whatever. I could care less. It's really, we're looking for somebody who has the capacity to do that thing, right? So if you ask the right questions initially, the test task is correct, then that person has the capacity, and more importantly, I guess the desire that they enjoy that kind of thing that you're hiring them for. And then we have what we call like our wish list training. So those are things that you want done in your business, you don't know how to do, but you really would like to have an expert in that in your business. So Google Analytics is the perfect example of this. So we were not using Google Analytics in our business the way that we needed to. So I found a Google Analytics course and I purchased it for my VA. And now a couple of wonderful things are happening. My VA is increasing her skill set and her expertise. Okay, so she is so happy. Oh, and we did this recently with a Pinterest course as well. And I didn't have to learn it. And so she learned it and now she gets to execute it. And she's so proud because this is hers. Again, she has a sense of ownership now because she's contributing. Because I think I know as human beings, we are hardwired to grow. Everybody. The man that's out digging ditches, he also has it's just in our DNA. We want to, doesn't mean we always do. It doesn't mean we always act on it, but there is a desire to just grow our whole lives. And so if you can give that's another way of offering value in addition to the pay that you're giving them.
Absolutely. I love that. So basically hiring for attitude or the way they like to work versus actually them knowing all the tools.
Exactly. Definitely.
Yeah. So you have seen then people stay on for, years with the same person. Do you suggest people hire straight away full time, or is it more like 10 hours a week, or how do they should get started?
So I like to, what I recommend in my program is that people start with a minimum of 20 hours a week. I just think you're going to have better luck that way. So even if they might not do technically 20 hours, but if you're paying $4 an hour, it's like just guaranteeing them that amount of money is going to benefit you in the long run. And even if you think you don't have 20 hours of work, like I said before, you will, because if all you did was the wish list part, right? If you find some trainings on YouTube on that thing that you want somebody to do in your business, and that's all you do is say, I'm going to pay you to watch this and learn it and make notes and then, implement it. That's worth $4 an hour for 20 hours a week for sure. So that's what I usually recommend.
Yeah. I absolutely love this. And I thank you for sharing, Jen, how people can hire a VA from the Philippines, because we haven't had this on the podcast before. I want to go back to the front row mindset. Hiring a team is a part of that too. You're not going to be in the front row unless you have a team that backs you up and allows you to be in the front row. So 100%. How does that relate to the team building for you?
Well, you have to be on the front row is to be a leader, and to be a leader is to be on the front row. I mean, so if you're leading a team, it's even for the person who is most fearful of or maybe doubts themselves so much that they can't step up there to the front row and lead the team. This just forces you to do it, I guess. It's sink or swim. It's do or die. It's at some point we're all going to face, as entrepreneurs, you're going to face a hard truth. Are you fine sitting in the middle and being mediocre and basically, even though you're working for yourself, you just created a job for yourself and it's worse than a job because you have a horrible boss who doesn't give you time off or vacations or, benefits. I mean, it's, who wants that? Yuck, nobody. So, so you have that reckoning sooner, hopefully, rather than later. And then you force yourself up into that front row seat. And your team is inspired by that, I guess. Does that answer your question? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, it does. I think a team wants a leader. They want someone that is in the front row for them. Whether it's running my business now or in the past when I was a CEO, they were looking for that. Not everyone wants to be in the front row, but by choosing the job role entrepreneur, you have chosen that, for better or worse, you've chosen that role already to be in the front row. And then
That's
you
a
have to
good
step
point.
up when you hire a team. That's the time to step up. And like
That
Gary
is a good
Vee
point.
points out, you're working for them. They're not working for you.
Yes. Yes, I love that. That's exactly right. And also, with the whole front row thing, it's like when you walked in the room that day in social media, I was standing up there and I was like, there's Sigrun. And she walked in and you had on your gorgeous red. And I just knew. I waited and I was like, I said to myself, she walks all the way down the aisle and plants yourself like front and center, right? Like right there. I am Sigrun. I am here. I'm ready to soak it all up. But not everybody is Sigrun, right? Like and clearly I'm an extrovert, and so, but what I want to say is that having a front row mindset has nothing to do with whether or not you're brave enough to wear, a floor length red dress, or if you're an extrovert. It really is more a matter of, and fake it if you have to in the beginning, to say to yourself, like, why not me? Why not me?
Perfect.
Period.
Perfect ending, Jen. Why not me? Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm super excited about your system, your process. We're going to link it up in the show notes. So how do people find you the best?
JenLehner.com. It's spelled LEHNER.com. And then this Front Row CEO, there's more information at frontrowceo.com.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jen.
Thank you, Sigrun.